Yeah, born ready.
Welcome to Thoughtspeak, a nostalgia podcast dedicated to two grown men diving back into the books of their childhood and seeing what holds up. My name is Coleman.
And my name is Mitchell, and that was my first time ever hearing that.
Yeah, mine too.
Well said. I guess that works.
Yeah, it's not bad. Welcome to the episode. This is episode 54, where we jump into the book Animorphs: The Revelation. What book number is that, Mitch?
We are looking at book number 45.
Wow, we're getting up there.
This is really reinvigorating the series at this point.
Yeah, this is the first book in the 10-book arc of the countdown to the ending. So, very, very exciting. This book really reinvigorated me personally.
It's a big day. I mean, this is one of the books in the series that we've certainly been talking about reviewing for a very long time, or at least I have. I've read this one before, but you said you hadn't?
No, this is definitely one I haven't read before, and I didn't know they started off with such a bang as far as like getting into the ending and stuff.
Oh, heck yeah. Yeah. As we're about to get into, but before we do that, we always like to start these things out by mentioning our Patreon folks, keeping the show alive, keeping us funded, helping out. Just a quick thanks to all the people who are making that happen lately, and that's Toasty Flatworm, Patter Roast, we've got the Geek Critique, Peter Schull, Justin Elliott, Dan. I should have arranged these by who I actually paid recently. Noah Troutman, Tim Aheen. They have different ways of organizing the names, and I just kind of click on one. Anyway, Amanda Mimic, Jeremy Baxter, Tomb Juice, Canicula, Josh Blount. A lot of these people, they've been around for a long time, supporting us for a long time. So a lot of these names kind of roll off the tongue now. Tony Pazak, Kendra, you still around? Kendra? I don't know. I think we might have lost Kendra. Ben Freeman, Jason Thompson, kicking around, still here. James Miola, Jennifer Baker, Kelly Brown, Kevin Koslowski, Andrew Walker, David C. Graith, Daniel Martinoli. Thank all y'all. Anita Labrada Gaffaro, thank you so much. Michael Blemick and Steve Adams. Thank y'all. Our patrons.
Yeah, really, everybody, you help support the show with Patreon. It pays for all the costs of us buying new webcam equipment and being able to put out new episodes at a faster rate. And it really helps us justify this to our wives. So we appreciate it. We know you love us talking about the books that we also love talking about. And that's possible because of you guys. So thank you. If you're noticing this, we've started live streaming every episode. This is going to be a Patreon exclusive. Right now we're kind of trying to get the ball rolling, so we're announcing on our social media and stuff. But it will become a Patreon exclusive for those guys who are able to help take care of us and produce the show. So we thank you all. Other quick announcements real quick. We're still trying to recoup some losses from iTunes. We lost our iTunes reviews and stuff because we had to kind of resubmit the show. So
it was a dark day.
It was
iTunes purge of 2017.
So it really would extremely help out the show if you love the show, but you don't want to put money out, or that's not something that you would normally do. Another way you can help out the show is leaving us a review on iTunes or whatever app that you listen to podcasts on, or what you listen to us on. Leave a comment or review, whatever you can do that helps spread the word of the show and bring in new subscribers, especially as we're about to breach this new era of the podcast where we're not just talking about Animorphs anymore. As you heard in the opening today, we are jumping into so many book series of our childhood and book series that we love, and can't wait to share that with everyone. So
yeah, and you know what I'd like to see more of our kind of freestyle episodes. We just very recently did a very Animorphs Christmas. It was so much fun just going through and talking about our favorite ideas for this concept of what an Animorphs Christmas special would have been like. And, I could foresee us doing that with quite a few episodes in the future. If that's something you guys like to see, we can do more of those, certainly.
Yeah, but not today. Today we are structured and we have a point, and that is to talk about Animorphs: The Revelation. And I am incredibly excited. I don't have your notes in front of me, so I'm going to be winging it. But I read this book just last week, and it still feels fresh in my mind. So I'm ready
totally.
to jump in.
And as soon as I read it, we were ready to do the episode. Unfortunately, our schedules didn't align quite to allow that. But yeah, let's dive right in. Okay.
But this is pretty quick for us, going from our very Animorphs Christmas to reading a book and then wanting to jump into it so quickly because we love this book. And it's not that we didn't love every Animorphs book we've read so far, but I feel like it did kind of like start lagging a little bit getting through some of those ghostwritten episodes. Even the ones we enjoyed, it's not quite like these ones. And I know these are ghostwritten. Some of these are ghostwritten, but the plot is moving. It's moving hardcore. So.
Yeah, they've finally been given permission, I guess, from Scholastic to start wrapping things up a little bit, tying up some loose ends, moving the plot forward in ways that can't be undone necessarily.
Oh, yeah.
and this is the start of that. This is book 45, The Revelation. Just taking a look at the cover, it's like a messed up one because he's morphing Ant, which we know they don't do anymore.
Yeah,
sometimes there's no escape even for the Animorphs. Ooh.
Which I like. This is one of those Animorphs books where there wasn't a whole ton of morphing outside of their main battle morphs, because it's such a plot-driven book and such a more talky book. So that Ant morph is from a very particular scene. It's surprising it made the cover, but
that's what surprised me too.
Yeah, what's the inside cover look like? I don't have it in front of me.
I can't tell you because unfortunately the copy that I have, it's taped together here for some reason. It's like a what do you call it? A makeshift book cover just out of tape.
Oh, well, let's assume it didn't have any relevance.
Keep laminate. No. They show it on the wikis, and I feel like it's my civil duty to pull that up quick. So while you talk about your thoughts on the cover, because it's okay. I mean, it's really, really red and orange,
Yeah, which to me says danger and, other scary things. But what's this? Can you read the tagline real quick on the front?
Yeah. It's sometimes there's no escape even for the Animorphs.
I mean, that's actually a pretty apt tagline. That's not silly.
No, it makes sense for this one.
Shows they're getting a little more serious. But yeah, I mean, that's you didn't even up to the end. You didn't get a lot of changes with these covers until the last few, which I thought the last few book covers got kind of artistic with what they were doing, especially the last one, which we'll talk about more when we get to it. But kind of does a spoof on a Rolling Stones album cover, but works really well for the series too. Oh, did you not know that? Am I throwing facts at you?
Yeah, I guess I don't know what you're referencing.
I'll show you once we get to the book 54.
Okay, I'm going to the inside cover from the Seropedia, and it is God, I don't know. Is that a scene from the book? Marco is in Antmorph, and he's in the car. And it looks like his dad's driving.
Yep, that's where he morphs Ant to. His dad is questioning. We'll get to that scene later, but his dad's questioning whether he saw the morphine or not, like whether he's just going crazy. So Marcus switched to morphine Ant just to mess with them, make sure to show him that's real.
Gotcha. Well, yeah, it looks pretty cool. Actually, it's a pretty decent scene from the book. Then and there's even looks like a Pepsi can in the can holder in the car.
Oh, cool. Well, why don't you jump right into the back of the book, and then we'll get into the book itself.
Right on. You want me to read it?
Yeah, I'll read the next one when I'm more prepared.
Oh, okay, sure. Things were already really weird fighting aliens, battling to save Earth, and still trying to be normal. Marco, the other Animorphs and Axe are almost used to it. Almost. But things are changing. The Yeerk invasion of Earth started out passively, secretly. But now everything seems to be stepped up. Even Marco's father is talking about some top secret project at his job, something about developing zero space. Marco doesn't even know whether his father is a controller, but he does know he's not going to let the Yerks win this one. They've already got his mother, and Marco will do anything it takes to save his father. Anything.
Excuse me.
So that's right off the bat. It sounds like, holy crap, this book sounds like it's moving the plot right ahead.
Yeah, well, I think actually from that summary, you could kind of see this as maybe it's a plot that they could twist into being a pretty normal Animorphs book. But once you read that cold open, which you started reading the book a couple hours before I did, and you just texted me, you're like, "Hey, this cold open, it's gonna blow your mind," and it really does. I mean, it's Marco and his dad and his stepmom all sitting around their house, and his dad just comes home and starts talking about his day at work. And is really excited, saying that they're getting into some new revolutionary technology that's really, and it could be as big as like landing on the moon and stuff. And Marco's just kind of zoning out. His dad's a physicist and an engineer, and it's just like normal job talk that he doesn't care about. But it's the interaction between his stepmom and his dad that they actually call it what he's been working on, zero space. And it just clicks with Marco. It's like, oh my gosh, my dad is working on advanced technology that's going to bring attention immediately to the Yerks and whatever forces are on Earth who wouldn't want humans to be developing something like this for a quick invasion.
Yeah, no, this was definitely one of the best cold openings that we've had in one of these books for a long time. Right off the bat, you're like, where's this going? What is his dad talking about? It's full of math. And, I'm like Marco, I'm not one of those mathers. So I'm kind of right where Marco is. I'm lost right up until you get to the end of the first chapter where his dad mentions what they're calling it. And he's like, zero space, Z space. And it just clicks. Yeah, it was so great. Made me have to text you.
Yeah, because it's up until a couple pages in, you're like, okay, they're about to start the plot. And then, you realize the ramifications of what they're doing. They're setting in motion events where Marco's father is not going to be able to hang around any longer unless Marco steps in. Or at least he's not going to be able to be free. He's not going to be able to not have a yerk in his head. So right off the bat, you're going to get a different Animorph story. And I think straight off from chapter 2, it's Marco diving head first. And even, I love how it's like, okay, I'm going to go ahead and say that I think this book is kind of separated into two parts. You have part of it trying to be a normal Animorphs book. And then you have the second part of it that is grabbing it by the, like back of the neck and pulling it into the end of the book series. So you have a fairly normal scene where Marco, freaks out, calls Jake, and they get together to the barn and discuss this. And just like previous Animorphs books, the other Animorphs are like, hey, this has to do with your family, so you're going to be calling the shots on this one. It's kind of similar to the book where Marco tried to save his mom, or, was trying to work with her against the Yerks or whatever, where they're like, Marco, you're going to call the shots because it's your family. But instead of Marco being this analytical, realistic, cipher who can break down the events and pick the coldest option that's going to let them win, he actually lets his emotions get to the better of him, which makes this such a important book in heading us into the end of the series, because he makes the wrong decision. He's emotional. He's not his analytical self. And it's what really sets this plot in motion.
Well, yeah, I feel like a lot of emphasis is put on his decision as, being the wrong one. And I don't know what they're thinking if they would have preferred to let the Yerks take his dad. But I feel like he made the right call in the end, getting him out of there and making it appear as though they both died.
If this leads to the end of the series where possibly millions of people die, it's a real ethical quandary. Would it have been more safe for them to enter a Tom scenario where Marco's just going to have to live as a, someone living with a Yerk? Or as we see later, would the Yerks have just tried to take the entire family and he would have had to do this anyway?
Exactly. So I feel like it was in their best interest, especially if his dad is clearly smart enough to be working on something as advanced as Z-Space, sticking with the free Hork-Bajir, sticking with the Chi.
Yeah. Well, this is
See how
just
things go.
this shows how. I mean, obviously it's a book series, and they were trying to lengthen it as much as they could. That's why we have so many different plots where they're, they just get away safe, and you have some Deus Ex Machinas and stuff like that that save the day at the last minute. But this whole situation, from you really could have this been like a 20 to 30 book series, or even less than that, because the situation is so fragile. These kids have this morphing ability, and there's so many little things that could happen that would just switch it over to their lives being in chaos, being out in the open, running from the Yerks. And it's amazing that we haven't had one of those situations yet. They immediately get backed into a corner here, and Marco has to make a decision of, whether he can be a normal kid anymore. And man, this is just everything we've wanted out of the series. This is the stuff. This is why the David arc is so good, in my opinion, because we see a kid lose everything because of his interaction with the Yerks. Except now it's happening to these characters that we've been following for 40 some books, who we care about. So it's so much. It's so exciting.
It really changes the series when they start bringing their parents in on the war, because it's so different from everything that we've seen so far. Them hiding out in the barn, all that, there's going to be a point where there's no more barn hangouts and strategies. It's going to be the Free Hork-Bajir Valley.
I'm surprised they didn't make the Chi come to the Hork-Bajir Valley and put a hologram up of the barn so they could hang out in one.
I guess. Yeah.
But let's move to the plot. So we got the cold open. He calls Jake, and Jake's obviously with his brother.
You're right. Immediately they call a group meeting and strategize about it. Marco kind of takes note that Cassie doesn't really seem to trust Marco on these kind of family matters, and Jake, relies on Cassie's intel, and he just notices they still think I'm going to make some kind of dumb decision here.
And this is where we're at with the Animorphs. He notices it through a glance that Cassie gives Jake. They're all so deep into this mindset of being Animorphs and these warriors that this is the way they think. That he sees a glance from Cassie to Jake, knows immediately that they're not trusting him completely like they've done before, and know that he's going to get emotional over this. And they're right. But Marco being Marco, he can be kind of scary sometimes, especially towards the end of the series.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. And I think he was exactly in the right here. He just has his friends kind of stake out and watch his dad. And, lo and behold, the very next evening or whatever, he intercepts kind of a early morning phone call. Some coworker calling his dad saying, another guy's dead. You got to come over here and help me tell his wife. And if Marco hadn't spoken to his dad the night prior and, asked about his job and everything and how it was going, Marco probably wouldn't have known anything about that. He would have been none the wiser, and his dad would have been taken. So again, extreme lucky coincidence that he happened to discover that his dad's working on Z-Space.
Yeah, and luckily he's smart enough to figure out that this phone call, what it means. Some coworker randomly dies who's also a part of this huge project, and we need you to come over here and help with the grieving widow. The story doesn't really make sense.
Yeah, at 4 a.m. or whenever it was super early.
Yeah, without someone knowing, being in this lifestyle, they would have taken it for granted and gone over and tried to help or whatever, and taken by the Yerks. But luckily, Marco pieces it together, and this is when he has to make a choice.
Well, yeah, and the first choice I feel like is who to call in for backup. Or maybe does he try some other people, or does he go straight for Rachel?
He goes for Rachel. I'm pretty sure. Again, you have to check the notes. I don't have any in front of me, but.
My notes say Marco springs into action and summons Rachel.
Yeah, well, that's the gist of it. He gets Rachel because in a fight, if a fight's about to start, Rachel's the one to have, and we're obviously going to be getting into more of that plot line here in a couple of books. But no, he calls her up, and yeah, she's on her way.
Well, they tail, his father to this guy's house, and Marco's quite familiar with this guy, I guess. And they just watch essentially the scene play out, everything kind of how we've seen the Yerks operate. I think the best view we've got of it was in Megamorphs number 4 back to before, when we saw Tobias's initiation into the sharing. It was very reminiscent of that, where Marco's dad comes in, expecting something.
Well, just to set the scene, just correct you a little bit. Rachel's not there immediately, so Marco tails his dad, and he sees his dad gets there, goes inside, and Marco's like still wrestling with this choice he has to make, and he glances through the window or a back window or something and sees the mini Yerk pool, like the little hot tub, kind of like how they took Jake, and like you said back to before, and they're forcing his dad down to it, and that's when he has to make a choice, when he sees his father like seconds away from getting a Yerk in his head, and that's when he goes, without even realizing what he's doing, he morphs gorilla and busts through the window, and that's when the fight starts.
Yeah, I mean, I guess he didn't necessarily go there planning to do that.
Yeah.
But I knew certainly, and I think most readers would know, that Marco's not gonna just sit there and watch them take his father and go, oh, well, I guess I got to work on getting him back now too,
And maybe he would have gone the other way if it weren't for his mother. If he would have been one of the other Animorphs or something, maybe he could have let his parent be taken and rationally thought, oh, I can try to free them later or something. But Marco's got too much baggage with his mom. He's basically given up on getting his mom back at this point. And he's not going to let it happen to his dad. He's not going to let the Yerk touch his ear. So he goes in full gorilla, and that's when the fighting starts. And when it gets bad, he tries to get his dad away, and it does get him away from the Yerk pool. But when he gets bad and Marco starts getting a little hurt, I think he gets his chest ripped open kind of a little bit, or so he gets a really bad wound. It's
a close counter battle with Hork-Bajir, so yeah, he's taking some damage. Yeah. I wrote that he morphs into his heavy mane and then makes excellent use of stage hazard items to help free his dad.
We've been playing a lot of Smash Brothers lately.
he's fixing up the furniture, and he's bashing Hork-Bajir and human controllers and stuff with couches and chairs.
So he plays with items. Ugh.
Exactly. Yeah, it's awful. But Rachel shows up and helps out, and everybody gets away. And then, we've kind of got what you'd expect with Marco and his father making their escape. Marco just kind of lays everything on the line and reveals everything to his freaked out dad.
Yeah, they get him out of there. And what do you say this goes on exactly? Are they in the car, leaving the place? Or because I know Marco, they get into his dad's car, right? And
and they start driving.
Yeah, and the Hork-Bajir are after them in like a van or something.
Only they get away.
Yeah, they get away. But then his dad starts this is where we move on to his dad questioning whether he really saw him morph and stuff, right? After he's told him the entire backstory of the Animorphs. I guess he just popped open the books and started going, number 1, the invasion.
Here, Dad, listen to the Thoughtspeak podcast. You'll understand everything.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Those early episodes, they'll hook you. But yeah, it's crazy. He glosses over it, but he tells his dad, from what it sounds like, everything, like the missions they've been on, the things they've gone through. He tells him about his mom, which is a huge revelation in itself to his dad, that his mom's still alive. Or no, he doesn't tell him that here. That happens later, right?
Yeah, he's still waiting to reveal that.
Yeah. But he tells him everything about the Animorphs and the Yerks and everything. And his dad can't believe it. He can't even believe what he just saw. And Marco morphs, or starts to morph to Ant to show him that, hey, this is real. This is happening right here. Just to convince him. And he's like, okay, I believe you.
Yeah. He does a lot of morphs, and some of them are only half morphs. That's actually one of the facts that I saw on Seropedia. Speaking of Seropedia, real quick, while I got it pulled up, I saw some interesting entries here. This is, like you said, the first book in the final arc of the series, which is the last 10 books. That's the Revelation to the Beginning. This marks apparently the second time where an Animorph acquires a morph that they already had. And that's when Marco acquires another Hork-Bajir in this book. He'd already gotten a Hork-Bajir morph back in the Prophecy.
I mean, it's not saying it's not possible. I mean, this is just a different Hork-Bajir that he's acquired.
Yeah, I suppose. And I mean, it's not like they can't acquire different Hork-Bajir because they're all technically different, I guess.
Well, yeah, just like humans. If you acquired different humans, it wouldn't affect the DNA or anything. It'd just be a different human.
Sure, and I think he actually acquires another human as well. One interesting fact, though, Seropedia points out is this marks the final instance of Axe playing with the spoken word while in his human morph. He apparently stopped speaking with multiple mouth sounds after the conspiracy, but he continued to repeat or play with a word or two occasionally until this book. After this, apparently, no more running Axe speaking joke.
It's because things get serious after this book. He doesn't have time to play with words.
I suppose. And apparently this book was also sold with a demo of the Animorphs PC game, Animorphs Know the Secret.
I don't think I played that game. I had the PS1 game, where you're like going through different levels. You morph Dragonfly at one point and stuff like that, collecting Animorphs coins. Not a super faithful book or game, but what was the PC game? Do you know that one?
Oh God, no! I have no idea. I think a long time ago, like late '90s, early aughts, I might have played like one Flash game they had on the Animorphs website. That was probably just like moving a icon around through a maze or something. But yeah, Animorphs video games have not lived up to the series or what they deserve.
I threw it into Google real quick, and it looks like a classic RPG. I see some Hork-Bajir lined up on one end, and their Battlemorphs lined up on the other side, and it looks like you attack back and forth. And then there's some not open world stuff, but someone running around some pretty ugly looking levels. Some of it looks kind of cool though. Huh.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's no reason why anyone would, but it'd be crazy to see a modern day Animorphs game, what they could do with that if they actually cared about it.
Yeah, that would certainly be cool. One last thing is that Marco tells his dad that he can morph into about 20 other animals, when the actual number of morphs Marco has is over 40.
I wouldn't be surprised if he's forgotten some of them. I mean, I'd be hard for me, unless I wrote them down. It'd be hard for me to remember some of my morphs.
It would be hard for you to remember turning into certain animals.
Maybe not. The experience of turning into them would probably sear them.
Oh man, I totally blanked out those 2 hours I spent as a moth.
Well, yeah, when you're morphing like cockroach and butterfly and all these other things, it's like maybe you forget the moth morph as well as the other ones. Who knows? But I like the little line where Marco's like, "You want to see my lobster?"
Yeah, that was a good one actually. You want to see my Velociraptor? Acquired that one in a Megamorph.
Who even remembers their dinosaur morphs?
Only Tobias.
Yeah.
He's got anti-chronoton DNA.
That is my one regret of this series, that in the last book, one of them didn't bust out like a T-Rex morph at a pivotal moment. That would have been incredible.
Incredibly stupid.
No.
But anyway, yeah. At this point in the story, we're maybe the first third of the way through, and Marco's already recruited his father, so to speak, or is moving him to safety. So after coming clean and revealing everything out, and explaining to his dad, like, we can't go to the police. Sorry, but Nora has already been taken. We can't go save your new wife. Forget about her. We're going to take you to the only safe place I know of right now. And he takes him to the Chi, which is the smartest thing. And I'm glad that he did that. Because he takes him there and introduces him to the, robot dogs. And they ask him if he likes dogs, which he kind of seems to do. What do you think about this scene? Did I lose you? I feel like I lost you. The problem with live streaming. Why would I have lost you? Yes, got him. What is happening? It muted me. Yeah, you think? Hmm. I can see you. It says you are muted though, so I don't know what you're doing on your end. I can see you. Can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, there we go.
Oh gosh, that was insane.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, it like hid me from the. So I started typing to somebody on YouTube to reply to them in the chat, and I wasn't in the chat when I was typing, so I hit a hotkey that like hid me from the podcast or from the live stream.
So you ruined everything.
I did. Well, I didn't leave the broadcast, so we're still broadcasting, so we can just pick up where we left off.
So everybody was treated to the wonderful spectacle. Well, like I said, I mean, this is some high quality entertainment live streaming.
Well, yeah, I don't know how to edit that out of the live episode, though. That's kind of annoying.
Well, that's why it's kind of interesting to the folks that want to watch live and then listen to our episode because, you know, I do a little bit of editing.
Yeah, and I'll be able to edit out of the audio episode, but I don't know how I'll do that. I mean, unless I pull it into Premiere or Final Cut, which is not as streamlined, you know.
If you have any editing tips for Coleman, please reach out to Thoughtspeakcast.
I know how to edit it out. It's just not as it's not as easy as it just automatically going to YouTube.
Okay. All right.
We lost 3 people watching live because of that kerfluffle.
Did we really?
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's unfortunate.
It is. But we can pick up right where we left off, and make sure to edit this episode carefully.
Cool. So anyway, we were at the point in the story where they've got Marco's dad safe and secure, tucked away with the chi. And Marco's got to come clean with his team about what happened, and of course they're unhappy.
Yeah, no, they think he's absolutely made the worst possible choice for this. They think he's basically pulled them all into the open, which he kind of has. I don't know if he had a real choice in the matter, other than acting exactly when he acted. This could have led to them all being taken anyway. In fact, now they were able to strike first and kind of get control of the situation. So I think they should be thanking Marco a little bit.
Well, and to tell you the truth, if any of them were in his position, I don't think any of them would sit there and allow a loved one to be taken right before their eyes.
I think Jake would have. If he would have seen a way for him to get out of it where his family, the rest of his family isn't taken, or if he would still stay Yerk free, I think Jake would have let his parents be taken.
But I suspect that if anyone in your family gets taken, your odds of being taken as well go up significantly.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look at Melissa. We got to bring Melissa Chapman back in the story because
at this point, I suspect she is taken.
Probably, but there was a long period where both her parents were taken, and her home life was ruined because she was still a normal kid trying to like figure out why her parents are completely different. So that's at least an example of Yerks just don't care about kids half the time.
You know, Melissa was an interesting character that frankly should have gotten her own book. It would be super interesting to have a book from a non-Animorph perspective, and you know, with how heavily her father is involved in the Yerk invasion, just a story from an outsider's perspective would have been incredibly interesting, especially if it ended with her getting taken.
Yeah.
Like the Animorphs, you know, think they've saved the day or whatever, and they've foiled another Yerk plot, except that unbeknownst to them, you know, Melissa still gets taken.
Yeah, in the chat, US Dutch Kitty 84 says it's a lost opportunity to bring her into the story. And I actually would have really liked a book that was from Melissa Chapman's perspective, where you know, she comes into contact with the Yerks, or like finds out what's really going on. And it's just a whole book from someone's perspective who's outside of this whole war looking in. That would have been really cool.
Well, yeah, and it'd be a really, really cool way to show Rachel's progression as a character, because Melissa's somebody who knows her, obviously, as like, you know, the beautiful gymnast girl, not this hardened battle warrior. So to see her show up on a battlefield suddenly would be really jarring for her.
Yeah, the mole rat.
Totally. But yeah, like I said, the rest of the team is like, oh, of course, it'd be Marco who's gonna propel us into more open kind of warfare with the Yeerks. But here we go. We've got to, work on protecting his dad now, and so
well, their first plan, Jake contacts the Chi and immediately gets them working on a scenario where they can fake Marco and his dad. What do they fake? They fake them getting killed? Yeah. They start working on a plan.
Don't ask me questions that are outside the order and structure that I've carefully created and crafted for this episode. Okay.
Well, they work on a plan with the Yeerks.
You always like throw these pop quiz questions like, on page 84, what kind of car did they make their getaway in?
No, it's not my intention to mess you up.
You always try and stump me with these.
No, I'm just working without notes, so I'm trying to, remember what's going on in the book. And they do say that Jake he's contacted the Chi, and we find out that they're gonna get an elaborate plan to have basically a hologram of Marco and his dad, and this is very dangerous for the Chi themselves, to be like Dracon beamed and killed. They start formulating that plan,
which makes so much sense. I can't believe they didn't do this earlier, but
I think the Animorphs still wanted to have their normal lives. They still wanted to go to school and be kids.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Well, they were very hopeful in the beginning, and now it's become quite clear to them that, the Andalites are not providing the backup that they've so desperately craved from book 1. And the direction I did not see this book's plot going in necessarily was Marco suggesting that, hey, why don't we use my dad's new Z-Space technology to, try and build some kind of like Z-Space wiretap and listen in on Yeerk plans and stuff.
Yeah, and the plot basically becomes a MacGuffin-driven plot where they need some parts from his dad's work to be able to build something like this. So yeah, that's kind of where the plot. I wasn't expecting that either. I thought this was going to be completely based around Marco revealing to his dad everything, but they add a actual plot into this too. I do want to touch on the fact that one of the best parts of this, and I think towards something I'll love throughout these books once they start freeing their parents and everybody gets into this war, his dad is incredibly frustrated with taking orders from these kids, which I totally get. These are, 14, 15-year-olds at this point, maybe 16-year-olds, I think, towards the end of the series. But
yeah, they're probably closer to, I would say, 16, 17 now.
Yeah, so his dad is like, I'm the adult, you gotta listen to me. And Marco's like, that's not the way this is gonna work. We've been in this war. You've got to do exactly what we say or we're all gonna die, and kind of shuts his dad up. But I think we're gonna be dealing with more and more of that. And I think from what I remember in the last few books, they actually say how they kind of placate their parents by making them part of the group as far as like the meetings and stuff. But they have to balance that because, the parents aren't going to be ordered around by a bunch of kids.
No, I remember them doing a really good job of sort of showing that strained relationship with the group of parents that sort of end up just getting dumped at the Hork-Bajir Valley throughout, the remainder of the series, and how they're constantly like arguing with the kids about their plans because they all sound so suicidal.
And I don't think the parents realize what their kids are capable of anymore. If one of these parents tried to take charge and could put them in danger, I think the kids would shut them down pretty quick. I mean, they wouldn't kill them or anything, but they would trap them or put them somewhere where they couldn't lose this war for them.
Right. Yeah. I mean, they're not screwing around at this point, as evidenced by the fact that they're willing to fake their deaths to, like you said, give up everything, give up his normal life. Marco and his father have here.
And there's a great moment too, where Marco's like, I mean, he kind of comes to the realization he's not going to go to school anymore. No more book reports. No more, just hanging out at the mall. Like his life is over from this point on. And that, as a reader of this series, it was incredibly like depressing and exciting at the same time.
Yeah, it's like, no more Marco hanging out at school, like you said. No more just going to the mall. Like Marco is, for all intents and purposes, just like confined to the Hork-Bajir Valley as well, for a good portion of the end of the series here now.
Hey, but he gets to hang out with the Chi. So that's fun.
He gets to hang out with the Chi. He gets to hang out with Axe a lot more. Tobias, good buddies.
The losers of the war effort.
Sure. And it skips ahead pretty quickly, I thought, with X and Marco's dad just being able to build this Z-Space device really easily and quickly and just kind of start listening in on your transmissions.
Yeah, they realize it's not just a way to communicate with possibly the Andalite fleet or someone else out there. They can use it as a covert device and actually listen to what the Yeerks are planning.
Totally. And it really works to their advantage here specifically because they are able to discover that not only is Visor 1 here and on Earth, back on Earth after, I guess, failing off planet on their other conquest, and she's on the chopping block, slated to be executed pretty quick.
This shows how quickly they're willing to move now, because I think these 3 plot elements could have been their own books in earlier Animorphs books. Like you have him revealing everything to his father and coming out, and then you have the plot of like trying to get this device from his dad's work, because that leads to a whole big fight, right? We kind of skimmed over that. That was a whole big thing where they went with the Chi to his work and tried to get the stuff. They tried to get the stuff for the device.
What are you? I don't think so, dude. Because all I wrote in my notes was Marco suggests they get his dad to remake the Z-Space radio device, and with help from the Chi, they fake the deaths of Marco and his dad at the hands of the Earth.
Yeah, and I think they actually go to his work, and it's like it's not a long thing, but I think there's actually a scuffle there.
Okay.
I might be making that up, but I thought it was true.
Hey man, if it happened in your mind in the story, then it's there and it added to it. So
well, hey, lead us in the next part, and I'm gonna check on something.
yeah, you go back and check your non-existent notes. But discovering that Visor 1, Marco's mom, is on Earth and about to be killed is like a wake-up call for Marco. Not only is he pretty ecstatic that his mom is still alive, because at this point, I think he still kind of was on the fence as to whether or not she had survived their last encounter. But lo and behold, she's alive. And now he's like, this is my last chance if I'm ever going to get my mom back. I got my dad, I saved him from the Yeerks. Why the heck not finally save my mom? And they plot pretty quick to go steal a bug fighter in order to rescue the Visor. And wow, my notes are just like, I must have flew through this because.
well, hold on. I do want to talk about something that they are dealing with this in the book. He does eventually tell his dad about Visor 1 and his mom and all of that. And instead of his dad being shocked and like excited by the idea that his mom's alive, his dad is just asking about his stepmom, and telling Marco that he's in love with his stepmom, Nora. And he wants to know if they can get Nora. When are we going to free Nora? And this is incredibly frustrating to Marco. This is a big subplot of the book, is Marco's frustration with his dad not being as excited as he was when he found out his mom was alive, his real mom. And obviously his dad's doing other things. He kind of got over his mom. He grieved for a long time, and he remarried because he was in love with someone else. And that, I love the idea that Marco doesn't fully wrap his head around that concept. To him, that's his mom. You can't replace her with someone else. But honestly, his dad moved on. And throughout this book, his dad is constantly like, when are we going to go save her? And Marco keeps pushing to the side. And I think that leads to after the events of what you're talking about right now, it leads to a pretty big event for Marco and his character. But like you said, they figure out that Visor 1 is up in the chopping block to be killed finally. It's kind of like the end of Visor, throughout Visor, where she's been put on trial, except trial's over. She's been convicted. and she's convicted to die of Kendrona starvation. So,
so they got her fastened to the old feeding pier. I guess it's
she's above it, like
a Yerk
like
irony that they
like a Yerk
starve them
crucifixion.
right within the Kendrona area.
Yeah, but they figure out a way to steal a bug fighter, or one of the more new advanced bug fighters, and you get a cool scene where like Axe is trying to figure out the controls. They figure out how to like they can't like get it to where it needs to be because they don't know the entrance personally where they're going to take it, but they fly it so crazy that they can activate the autopilot that'll take them back to the Yerk pool.
Well, they weren't expecting to take this underwater route to the Yerk pool either.
Yeah, it's a totally new entrance to the Yerk pool. It's a new kind of not spaceport, that's the wrong word for it, but it's like a hangar, a huge hangar with all these bug fighters in it coming in and out, and you even have a blade ship in dry dock being repaired and stuff, which is pretty.
It's like a subterranean boathouse.
It shows how big this new addition to the Yerk pool is. And it's interesting, they say specifically a blade ship. They don't say the blade ship. They say that there is a blade ship in dry dock.
Well, perhaps there's more than one.
That's the first time they've ever hinted towards that. So, and they say it pretty matter-of-factly. But
interesting. Yeah. So the interesting thing here is they just all decide to go Hork-Bajir because it's like the safest way to infiltrate now. They, don't exactly stand out in that morph. And, real quick, they can see where Visitor 1 is. She stands out on the pier, kind of isolated. And a battle breaks out right away. And Visitor 1 manages to break free during this little encounter.
Well, I thought they got her free. Is that all right?
They're quickly discovered, and a struggle to free the captive V1 breaks out.
Yeah, it's just kind of a mix on who does it, but
it's a close call scene.
Yeah, and you have here's the thing: is you have them being dropped off by Bugfighter onto the pier, and it's like Marco and Rachel, right? Like two of them, or just a few of them are there, while Jake and Axe and a bunch of other ones are basically dogfighting other bug fighters in the dome of the Yerk pool above them, and it's pure chaos. You have tons of Hork-Bajir trying to run up this pier to fight them, while they're trying to protect Visitor 1 and not have her be trampled by the fighting. They're in full battle morph. It's just complete chaos. And while they're fighting, Visitor 1, the real Visitor 1, slips out of Marco's mom's ear and she's so desperate and crazed for Kendrona, she tries to leave her host and drop into the water, but through just like luck of the draw, she falls onto the pier itself and is trying to like inch herself into the water, or in the Kendrona pool. And the same time, Marco's mom, who's got so many broken bones and is all beat up, she's trying to get to Visitor 1 to kill her.
Okay. Yes, this happens. And I thought, it's almost too bad that it's almost too bad that Visitor 1 wasn't given, a little bit more of a character send off, but it actually fits pretty perfectly. If you were to read this right after Visitor, I think, where it's a fitting death. She tries to flee her host, which is, I think, one of the most disgraceful ways for a Yerk to die. And I think it's Marco who ends up like stomping on her, isn't it?
Yeah, no. It's
this
is a great send off to Visitor 1. And like you said, I wish they would have done more with her, like her actual character and talking and stuff. But the Yerk itself is starved and just insane. But what's great about this death of Visitor 1 is it's not just his mom and it's not just Marco, it's both of them. So his mom starts, I think it's she, oh gosh, I wish we would have had this in the notes or written it down, but she has half of it, and Marco in Morph steps on the other half. It's like they both kill Visor 1. That's the important part. They kill her together. And it's like such a relief and catharsis for both of these characters, her having to live with Visor 1 in her head this entire time and make compromises and deals and all this stuff with her while she's doing evil things, and then Marco having to deal with this person who's kept his mom captive. They both get the catharsis of killing her, and that's the end of Visor 1 being killed by both of them together. And it's pretty incredible. And then they get Marco's mom onto the bug fighter that comes in for a last minute save while they think they're really dead. Because Visor 3 is he's just arrived. And he's morphing something crazy again, as Visor 3 does.
Yeah, exactly. He gets a little bit of a cameo in this book. He's not in it for too long. And you know what? I realized that this really ends the whole Visor 1 subplot for Marco that started back in his introductory book. I think was book 5. And yeah, wow. 40 books later, we've got a conclusion to the Visor 1 subplot. And now it's all going to be about how Marco's family sort of mends itself and makes its way through the war.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about how this book is different, how it's leading into the end of the series, is the fact that we see the end of a major character, a major villain. This is Visor 1. This is the Visor who got her own entire separate book to personify her and give her character. It's a big deal.
Totally. And Marco's mom is also a very important character, a very key player in the war because of all the knowledge that she's accrued from spending so much time with the Yeerks. She knows how they work. She knows all about their inner structuring, all their secrets. She's freaking Visor 1, man. Like, even if the Yeerk's not in her head, the human host still knows everything that Yeerk learned, basically. And like I said, she's a key player throughout the rest of the series. And we don't expect her to, sit out the plot with the rest of the parents sitting at the Hork-Bajir Valley.
Yeah, so I want to do a live reading. How do you feel about that?
Hey, knock yourself out, brother.
Okay, so hold on, I'm right there at the edge of it. I'm trying to find the exact part. Keep talking for a second.
Okay, I'm actually looking at the little end part for the next book, The Deception, because I can't remember what that was, but it's really already interesting, really making me want to read the next book, just based on what I've read right here. I don't know if you read the little snippet at the end, but it's a good one, man. We're getting into some really good books here. This one basically just ends. Yeah, like I said, with Marco taking his mom back to the Hork-Bajir Valley.
Let me come in real quick with this live reading, since I don't want to move past it before we do live reading, but I got it right here.
Is it okay? Right,
Visor 1's death. I think it's worth reading for anyone who hasn't read it, or it's pretty exciting.
Oh, totally, sure.
Yeah. So they're fighting these elite Hork-Bajir. They have like these blue bands on their arms. So just to give you context. Jake took out the 2 remaining blue bands just before we were sliced in their mobile cuisine art of war. I'm losing it, Jake, Rachel mumbled, still falling close by. You have to get us out of here. I tried to lift my mother again, but this time she resisted, summoning all her feeble strength. Dracon's strafe sprayed the pier. Die, she wheezed, eyes fixed on a small gray spot an inch from the edge. Visor 1. Mom, stop. She fell forward, arm extended, clutching. Die! The bug ship flew in over the pool, blocking us from Dracon fire, hovering low just feet away. My mother's face was distorted. Real human tears ran from her cheeks. Rage, pain, joy. And then her hands squished the parasite. But the slug was still alive. No! I slammed my foot on the still wriggling worm, and it was clear. It was clear that Visor 1's journey had ended. So it's great. They both, like, she just like squeezes it in her hand, but it's not completely dead. It's just like, I guess, pretty mortally wounded. And then Marco, before it can fall into the pool, Marco squishes it with his gorilla foot.
Good, yeah. And there was a part of me that expected maybe for Visor 1's Yeerk to get away and maybe come back for a final confrontation in a later book, but nope. that plot is wrapped up, sir. And like I said, it's all about how his parents are now going to make amends moving forward.
Yeah, and we even have a great moment when they're escaping. They're struggling with the bug fighter that they stole, and Eva, his mom, his real mom, she still has all these memories from being, Visor One, and she like teaches Axe how to pilot the ship a little better.
Yeah, see, she's already being useful.
Yeah, it gets them out of a situation where they needed like a burst of energy to escape, and she does that. So it's just they actually got a pretty powerful ally that they never really brought up in the books before. Like saving Visor One was always for Marco and getting his mom back, but it's a pretty powerful ally just having her and her knowledge.
Yeah, like I just said, she's a useful character. Definitely want to add that one to the party. I'm gonna rake in a lot of extra XP. If you have her equipped with her science equipment.
Just as level 4 trident.
Yeah, and the final scene of the book, the little stinger scene, is them using this new Z-Space device to make a call to the Andalites. And I'm gonna do my own dramatic reading.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm going to start it from right here. We have a connection, Axe said. All 4 of his eyelids blinked rapidly. His posture straightened. A voice, a scratchy, commanding voice. Who is this? Demanded the Andalite officer on the other end. Who is initiating this contact? It was surreal. This voice, these words, are linked to another world. Jake signaled Axe to answer, but Axe shook his head. No, I believe this is your moment. Jake glanced at each of us, ran his hand through his hair. This is, he cleared his throat. He glanced back at Axe and smiled. Then he leaned in close to the device. This is Earth, he said. We do know who they are, and we know you too. What is that meant to?
I think it's supposed to be a play on the books, like the main summary you see before the summary of each book. You don't know who we are, the whole thing.
We can't tell you who we are.
We can't tell you who we are. Yeah, that whole spiel. I think it's supposed to be a play on that.
But they change it so much.
I know. I think that was the intention, to be dramatic.
We do know who they are, and we know you too.
Yeah, so. It's a little awkward. It's a very writery ending line to be like the most impact. I have a third dramatic reading, and it's from a section of the book that I think makes this one of the best Animorphs books we've ever read.
All right, hit me with it.
Okay. Marco, he said in a whisper, was there any way to save Nora? Is there any way to save her now? His words made me feel a little sick, but by now I knew that life and love were complicated. You know that I love her. I nodded, made the decision. Dad, what if Nora was a controller all along? What if the Yeerks put her in your path because they knew you were involved in secret work? Pain knotted my father's face. My conscience was heavy. Permanent damage had been done. My family was back together, but not really. Not honestly. It was a desperate speculation, one that I hoped would make it easier for my dad. It didn't make it any easier for me. What are you saying? You were set up by the enemy, I said. You can't blame yourself. That, in my mind, is the darkest moment in the entire series so far. Marco lying to his dad about his stepmom and her being a Yeerk controller or not, just so that Marco can have his family back. That is super dark. And it's a character choice that really ethically puts Marco in a bad place.
Yeah, so it's a really interesting case of the classic trope of a character finally getting what they want, except it happens in a way that is not as they wanted it to necessarily, and there's unintended consequences. And now Marco's gotten to the point where, it's kind of like jamming together puzzle pieces that don't match anymore. He just wants his family back. He wants his dad and his mom together, and he wants his life that he frankly just can't get back. And the depths that he's willing to sink to now, where, he's very being emotionally manipulative of his father.
Well, US Dutch Kitty 84 in the chat makes a good point that the child within Marco's brain peeks out. So it's both him in his new, analytical self, his dark self, doing that, but it's also the kid wanting his family back, like you said. But I think there's another layer to it where this is what makes it truly dark in my mind, is the fact that Nora's not dead. He's not saying this post-death. Nora could be saved just like any other character that they've run into in this situation. They could capture her, fake her death, just like they did Marco and his dad, hold her for 3 days and get the yerk out of her head. They don't even attempt it. Like, Marco puts his family back together so that Nora isn't a factor in ruining what he's put back together. That, in my mind, is super dark for the series. Like, really, really dark.
You make a good point. That's very true. They could very easily start, collecting survivors or loved ones, people that they want to actively protect now that they notice the Yeerk invasion is moving forward. And I think especially in the next book, you're going to see even more escalation and more family members being brought into this story. But like you said, that's an excellent point, is that Marco rules out ever even thinking about going after Nora, to the point where he actively makes his father, quit questioning whether they should do that or not, which, like you said, they very easily could, right?
Yeah. It wouldn't be easy and it puts things at risk, but it no more so than they've done in the past,
Sure. And that's just Marco's kind of selfish desire to be like, no, Dad, I know you like that lady, but we're done with her now. Maybe after the war you can still be friends with her or something, but we got the family back together now, you, me, and Mom.
Yeah, that's crazy to me. I read that and I was like, oh my gosh, that's the part that really made this book, that subplot building and then escalating in that way. Because ever since his stepmom came into the scene, he's not, he got to the point where he didn't hate her anymore for like changing his life or trying to replace his mom or any of that. But he never liked her, and this is the culmination of that. Is like, hey man, yeah,
I'm totally okay with sacrificing you to the Yeerks just for my own purposes, basically.
Are you saying that to me personally?
Yes, but that is also how Marco felt about Nora.
Yeah, and her dumb dog.
We don't know what happened to the dog. I assume it is now fed to Texans.
It got Draconed in the fight.
It's very possible. It's very possible. It's going to be hard to formally review this book, I think.
I've been struggling with it. You can go first. I want to hear what you have to say, and then I'll settle on mine.
Sure. Well, I think it would be fair for me to just lead with my scoring and then justify it.
Okay.
Seems fair to me. And yeah, this is just one of the best Animorphs books we've read in probably 10 to 15 or so episodes, like besides some of the Megamorphs and Chronicles books that we've read recently that were really fantastic. This is definitely top tier Animorphs material. And for that, it's 5 out of 5. Why don't I think of these things before I start doing this? 5 out of 5 sacrificed stepmoms. Sure.
Oh, jeez.
I would sacrifice 5 stepmothers for this book because it was that good. And here's why. Like I said, one of the just best cold openings of any book ever. You're reading it. It's a very unfamiliar scene with Marco's family life, his dad being super upbeat, very happy. On to the discovery of Z-Space, which the readers should know the importance of. Marco certainly knows the importance of. It's a very strong start. I just thought that all the characters acted extremely intelligently, as they've been shown to do throughout the series. They're using all their skills they've learned. I think Marco made the right move in saving his father. Like you said, him choosing specifically to give Nora to the Yeerks is much darker, probably than what they even intended. In fact, they could have, not had Marco had that line, and it would have just been like a coincidental, like in the background kind of, he's kind of throwing her out there. But this like really makes it deliberate and intentional. And for that, yeah, it's definitely a messed up thing for Marco. Especially, I don't recall if they bring Nora back into it. She might be in a book later on, just in kind of in passing. But we'll see how that develops. Anyway, it's a super interesting twist. It's great to get closure to the Visor 1 story that, like I said, started 40 books ago, back when we started this podcast in 2014.
Whoa, that's scary.
It's 2019 now, and things have changed in the world, both in the real world and in the Animorphs world. And
I grew out my facial hair.
Wow, way to go, buddy. You've really made the morph. So yeah, like I said, 5 out of 5. If you haven't gathered that just from listening to us talk about this one, I mean, we love this thing. If you were like a super old-timey fan of Animorphs and wanted to do a brief reread of the series, just the best books, like I think we could give you a pretty good list of like the first, 5 books or so from the start, and then like these last 10 are really fantastic, starting with this one. It's very easy to see why, because it moves the plot forward in a satisfying way. It gives us all the interactions of the characters that we love, acting very intelligently. Like I said, I didn't see a lot of the third act of this plot going forward the way it did, and it kind of surprised me a little bit, and it was very cool, actually. Now they have open connection to Andalites, and I really want to see where this goes, especially with the Yeerks stepping up their open warfare game in the next book. And yeah, man, I'm all on board for these last books. I think 2019 is going to be the year we finish Animorphs spectacularly, and we move on to bigger and brighter things. So
talking about the end of the book, I was surprised it got so almost Megamorph scale action when they were in the Yeerk pool. That's probably the biggest fight we've seen in the Yeerk pool, where you have bug fighters dog fighting, you have more Hork-Bajir and Elite Hork-Bajir in the fight, and it's just a huge battle scene. It's crazy. There's parts of the Yeerk pool like falling down and like knocking the pier. I don't think we gave that scene justice with our lack of notes this time around. But
it gets so hard to really intricately describe all these battle scenes, because at a certain point it's describing the same thing. They fought some Hork-Bajir. They're in a different location. It's a much larger pool.
Damn it. It's up to us to break this down as writers. And
okay, so let's try and go over the choreography for this fight scene. It looks like the Hork-Bajir A through right slash 2 times and then countered with a tail whip. Yeah, we could get into that kind of depth, but I don't think it's necessary.
No, not completely necessary. But there's some things that happen with like Earth movers and the way the battle plays out that, I'm kind of regretting we didn't go into. But
yeah, well, that's why we do these reviews and we say this is a book well worth reading if that's your kind of thing. And boy, howdy, it does not disappoint. It delivers.
So I'm going to do quick with my review. I actually really struggled between a 4 out of 5 and a 5 out of 5 because it was such a joy reading this book. It was an amazing book, but I think we're kind of just we've kind of forgotten how good these books could be, and for that reason I think these are only going to get better. I have to leave this at a 4 out of 5 blue banded Hork-Bajirs, and it's a very very high 4 out of 5. It's right there on the line.
In what way was this not a perfect Animorphs book?
So I think it does rush a little bit through the middle plot. I think it has some amazing plot points happen, and it's payoff to so many storylines. But honestly, they could have done more with Visor 1. This is the end of Visor 1. That should have really been its own book. And they wanted to get this countdown started. Obviously, there was some decision made between the last book and this book that's like, okay, we're going to end the series. And that's incredibly exciting. And I'm not saying there was anything super bad about this book, but it could have been more fleshed out. It could have been more. And for that reason alone, as much as I loved it, it's not a bad score. It's a extremely high 4 out of 5.
No, I actually understand. Pacing is definitely odd in this book. It's very fast in the beginning. Like you said, there are some parts where they kind of skip over pretty quickly what seems like should be a bigger deal. I was really thankful for it, just in the whole plot involvement with Marco's dad, freeing him, bringing him into the fight. I really like that pacing. But I guess, yeah, my only criticism for the book would have been they could have done a little bit more with Visor One's death. But I really look at Visor just as that kind of last take on the character.
And how
this
good
is
does it
kind of a very
feel?
fitting death.
I understand what they did here, because how good does it feel to have both of Marco's parents free at the end of this book? That's incredibly exciting and great. And I honestly think the rushing is almost justified by the subplot with Marco's dad talking about Nora. It's like this situation is more complicated than we're giving it credit, and we're aware of that by that having that subplot in there. So it's almost like I've been watching a lot of cooking shows lately. It's almost like you're cooking something too sweet and you add a little vinegar to mellow it out and balance those flavors. And so they know what they're doing with this book. It's just, as an Animorphs fan, I could see other avenues where they flesh things out more. But anyway, moving on. That was the revelation. Those are our reviews. Obviously, this is unskippable. You have to. I skipped this book as an Animorphs fan, as a guy who started this long time podcast dedicated to Animorphs. I skipped this book in the next like 4 or 5
rookie
books.
Mistake.
Totally rookie mistake. And it's kind of about what my library had in stock and what Walden Books had and stuff. But I was fool. I was naive. And I'm just so excited to read these for the first time. It's crazy.
No, let me just say, yeah, if I could change one thing about this book, it would have been the ending. Instead of rushing with the whole, we're going to call the Andalite Fleet for the ending, they could have given just a little bit more time to the death of Visor One and had Visor One's final scene kind of dragged out to the very end there, and had it end on them actually killing the Yeerk Visor One.
I actually think what you could do to fix this is get Visor One out. Maybe have her like get into the pool just so she's gets a little Kandrona back, and then recapture her before they leave. And then have her be in Eva, and you have a scene where they're starving the Yeerk out. So then you would get, like, they're back at the Free Horkwood Valley. They're starving. She's strapped to a chair somewhere, and you get a couple of scenes of them talking to Visor One before she dies. I actually would have really liked that.
Yes,
but it wouldn't have been as actiony and impactful as them ripping the slug apart on the pier before they get out.
No, but they could have done an excellent scene with, like you said, Visor One dying inside Eve, and Marco's father being there to witness the process and see his, wife in this, what looks like a really chaotic, painful state. And that would have been a powerful way to bring Marco's father out of his like Nora funk and be like, okay, I'm fully committed back to my old wife now. Like they could have done that.
Like re-meeting his wife for the first time again.
Sort of, yeah. Like you said, up until they get her there, and they just kind of hug, and it's alluded that they're doing some adult like stuff on the beach a little later, as the team's calling the Andalites. But yeah, I think a scene like that would have definitely helped turn things a little bit more positive, I guess, for this whole Marco, his dad, and his mom situation. As they left it, it's definitely on a very questionable note.
So. I like that it's kind of messy, though. It kind of lends to the plot of this book that this adult complications within these relationships aren't going to just like fix themselves. We're not going to have a super happy ending to this book, which is kind of cool for this series.
Sure. And so many other things went perfectly right in this story that something has got to be left a little unclean, a little messy. And that's definitely his family relationship going forward. But yeah, like you said, man, the Revelation's good stuff. And we've got only more good stuff to come, especially next time with The Deception.
I'm honestly going to start reading that book probably right when we get off the air.
Hey, I wouldn't blame you. If you read the little snippet that's in the back of this book, it's like, oh my God, that event is finally happening. Right on. I want to get to that.
Yeah. So I would expect as a listener that we're going to ramp up these episodes just because we're dying to read these books. And as soon as our schedule allows us to record the next one, keep a lookout for us announcing another live stream like this. Obviously, we got to get this episode out. Normal, got to do some editing on this one now. But yeah, we're an exciting time for Animorphs, and you guys stick with us as we end out the series.
Heck yeah. It's going to be a lot of fun. And especially if you want to join us on Patreon, really helps the podcast keep going, helps us pump it out a little bit faster. Those ratings and reviews on iTunes and whatever platform you use to listen to the podcast, also super helpful. Maybe to go to our YouTube channel and like some of the old videos.
Subscribe.
Pump up the old view count on some of them. We're pretty new to YouTube as well, so excited to be on that platform and making use of that.
Yeah, and we're on Twitter at Morphcast, and we're on Facebook, obviously, as well. So just keep a look at those channels, and you'll be up to date on when we release new episodes and when we start talking about what the next book in our series are going to be. I
already see a lot of suggestions. Somebody suggesting Michael Grant's Gone series, which I have really wanted to read. I have the whole series on my bookshelf, haven't cracked into them yet. Maybe we'll get to it.
Yeah, I don't think it'll be the next thing we do because we don't want to be seen as the K. Applegate or the Michael Grant podcast. It's not that there's anything wrong with that. It's just not what we're going for. So maybe we'll revisit Gone or something a couple series from now or something like that. And I don't think we're going to be getting into any other series that are, Animorphs strong, 54 books plus, Megamorphs plus, all these other ones. So expect us to hit another series that maybe has 4 or 5 books in it or, something like 12, something more manageable. And
some standalone books, perhaps.
Yeah, we're definitely going to hit some standalone books as well. So it's just an exciting time for us. I can't wait to see what new fans we bring into the podcast through these other books.
Right you want to talk Chronicles of Narnia?
Oh, I was looking at that on the shelf at Half Price Books the other day. I think that for you and I and our religious discussions, I would love to talk about some Chronicles of Narnia.
Oh, so would I. One of my favorite book series.
They're amazing book series, and it's so surprising that you love them.
Well, I just want to really do it. One, because I love the series, and I know you do too. And another, so that maybe we could do his Dark Materials as well.
Yeah. So Panzerpox in the chat just asked, will it only be YA books? And I think it's not confined to YA books. It's more about books that we read when we were younger that impacted us in some way. So that's just a lot of YA books fall into that.
Younger, some of these books we're going to be going through, I just read 5 to 10 years ago.
That's true. And it's just nostalgic.
But it's still nostalgic.
It's nostalgic. I read Circuit of Freak in college because you introduced them to me. And there's a good chance that's our next series we're going to jump into. So that's incredibly recent for me.
I would love to do that, yeah, as well as Artemis Fowl series. A lot of these you described as middle grade fiction.
Yeah, it's something that it's just, again, it's anything that we have nostalgia for. I'd love to. I'm trying to track down some Dinotopia books that maybe we could read somehow. I got a couple books, so just quickly, there's a roller coaster at Kings Island in Ohio, where it's kind of our theme park we would go to, and it's called the Beast. It's actually a fairly famous wooden roller coaster. For a long time, it was the longest wooden roller coaster in the world, and they actually wrote 2 almost Goosebumps-esque books based on this roller coaster, and they were ghostwritten by R.L. Stine under another pseudonym, and I loved both of those books. It's about kids who go on this roller coaster and they encounter a monster in the woods.
Okay, we'll read your spooky roller coaster fan fiction.
Oh, come on. Ghost written by R.L. Stine. That's pretty cool.
Percy Jackson. I have not read the Percy Jackson series. I missed that whole one. I was a teacher at the time when that was kind of taking off in schools, so I saw a lot of 4th grade, 5th grade kids kind of reading that series. And
Percy Jackson looks like something I would have read if it had been more in my time frame.
It would, but I'm very particular in my Greek mythology series.
Are there other
what I
ones?
mean? Oh, Greek mythology? Yeah, there's always.
I only read spin-off
Hercules.
novels of the Disney's Hercules.
Yeah, I only watch Disney's Hercules cartoon series. Actually pretty good.
Anyway, but there's a ton of these series that I think we're going to be able to fill the podcast with. I'm so excited to talk about like Ender's Game and stuff. So just keep a lookout what we're going to do. We're always going to be listening to suggestions, but I think selfishly it is going to be things that, at least at first, things that impacted us and that we care about. So, I mean,
well, here's the thing. It's going to be good books. If you like us and you like the stuff that we like, you're going to like these books, I think. We're not going to talk about bad books, generally, I think.
No, we're going to avoid the bad books. I think, you know, obviously there's books that don't hold up as well in some of these series, but I don't think we're going to hit as many books like the Animorphs books. That there's some really bad ones that you just have to get through to get to the next one. I don't think very many of the series that we want to talk about have those kind of books.
Oh, you know what? Come to think of it, something that would be really fun for us to do, I think, and if you guys like it, let us know, is maybe you could recommend for us a bad book that we could read and just kind of have fun laughing at, or we could read some of KA's really old stuff. I've got an old relic of hers from her early writing days, some old book.
I know you mention it every podcast.
What? The Sharing Sam book?
Yeah. You mentioned it last one too.
I don't know if I did, but the point is, some of that older KA stuff could be pretty amusing if we ever get around to doing an episode on that.
Yeah. Anyway, but stick with us. Keep a look at our channels. I had so much fun reading this book and talking about it. I can't wait till the next one. Let us know in the comments or email us at thoughtspeakcast@gmail.com or go to our website, thoughtspeakcast.com, and let us know what we missed, what were your favorite parts of the book, and what you're looking forward to in the rest of the series for us to talk about. So anyway, I've been Coleman.
And I've been Mitchell, and thank you all for joining us on this very special live stream recording of our episode of ThoughtSpeak.
Have a good one, everybody.
Peace.